Hi, I'm Charlie Collins, and this is the Donegal Sport Hub Donegal Daily Championship Podcast. And you're very welcome to our podcast here. We have Danny O'Donnell and John Harn in studio with us today again, of course. And we're brought to you in association with Donegal Construction. That's in Boston, Massachusetts. Thanks to Paul Freed again for his support. We really appreciate it. Plenty to talk about. To relieve John, a disappointed Danny, I suppose, after what happened over the weekend. But we're going to start, Danny, with the Intermediate Championship. Termon 2-15, Nivora 1-8. Hardly a reflection on the game because we were just making the point. 11 minutes to go. It was all square. Black card. Big turnaround.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, Charlie. I think the scoreline is harsh on us, to be honest. We said our stall. We knew going into the game, as I said here last week, we were underdogs and we knew what we were up against. A formidable Termon team, to be fair, who at least we brought a game out of them, particularly in that second half. They upped their levels and they had to up their levels, to be honest. But look, we had a 3-0 lead. We kept Termon scoreless first 18 minutes, which is all part of the plan, if you want to call it that.
Sure.
5-5 at half time, nip and tuck in the second half. Termon got a goal to put 4 points between us. We got back up the pitch, got a goal back, and from that goal we got a black card. You know, like a silly black card, if you want to call it that. And look, after 2 minutes into that black card, we got the equaliser. So with 11 minutes to go, the game was level, 1-8 to 1-8. But from then on to the end, with 14 men in O'Donnell Park, and the way we were set up to play, there was energy sapping, and wee pockets of space began to appear, and no man better than Darren McDade to exploit that, you know.
And they were much more clinical in that period than they had been for the whole game because, as you said, it took them 18 minutes to score and they kicked some bad wides in that first half, Danny.
They did, yeah. And look, we were trying to force them into areas where they wouldn't be comfortable shooting from, and their shooters were being man-marked, and all that was working in our favour, Charlie. But it's very hard to sustain that over 60 minutes, particularly if you're down a man.
Yeah.
And to be fair to them, look, they're big and strong. We're in the middle of the field, and we had a lot of problems winning primary possession of kickouts. But when we did have the ball, we looked dangerous. We did cut them open, and we needed to be ahead at half time, Charlie, to be honest. And we could have been ahead, but we weren't. So, but look, looking back on the performance, we'll be happy enough with 50 minutes. We'll be happy enough with what we've done in the championship, to be honest. I said this in here often enough. We weren't anywhere near favourites to win it.
Yeah.
But we definitely performed to a level that we're happy enough with and look to push on. But look, and as far as Termon's concerned, I thought their big players performed really well for them. And if you look at the squad depth they have, I mean, to bring Jamie Grant in off the bench was a serious man to bring in. They had Ricky Gallard full back, Big Bobby Gettigan, Terry McDade, and McCormick, you know, good players. And people were saying, and we said it ourselves, that don't always perform and say when teams set up defensively. But at the weekend, we did set up defensively, but we also counter-attacked at pace. And look, we gave them problems, but at the end of the day, they found the solutions, and we're deserving winners, there's no doubt.
Termon unbeaten in the championship, John. Serious, but there's questions there. And Keelan even made the point after the game, you know, nothing's perfect in a match, and we don't get perfect games anymore. But to look at the first 50 minutes and the last 10 minutes, and there's a huge difference of what happened in both periods.
Absolutely, Terry. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I was in Dromore, Tyrone with an under-10 team for St. Judeans, so I didn't get back in time for Donald Park. But from listening, Charlie, into bits on the radio and getting reports from people that were at it, you know, Danny mentioned Jamie Grant. I think he had a big influence when he came on. I think he hasn't been injured. It's more work-related or study-related. He's missed the last couple of weeks or games, so he's back and he's a big player. Like, he played county football maybe last year, a bit of McKenna Cup, and that's right. That kind of quality, Charlie, is going to make a difference. And as Danny says, when he was sprung from the bench midway during the second half, it's a big lift to a team to have that kind of quality. And I think he's very athletic, Charlie. He can run up and down the field, get on ball and set up. So no, Termon, Charlie, as you said, you know, not perfect, but in a final. And, you know, I've probably got to a final without being tested. Well, Danny did, you know, test, but they haven't, you know, they've come through, Charlie, I suppose, with flying colours, really. You know, they haven't really looked to, you know, shaky that they were going to get caught the way they were last year. So I think overall Termon will be very happy. As Danny says, they have a lot of quality players. Like, you just go through their team, they're the most pedigree of any team in the Intermediate Championship. They are favourites for a reason, and now they're in the final and they have to deliver, Charlie, because they have been found wanting in a couple of big games this last couple of years. That game 2 years ago against Dunlow over in Ardra Lights, you know, they didn't show up. They were very poor that night. Last year again they were caught, so, you know, it's time for them to deliver, Charlie. But they have the team there now. They're in the final. They are favourites. Can they handle that tag for the next week and a half and getting ready for a final against Neve Columba. I think they can, Cherry, because when you have the quality players, it's just a matter of getting the performance out of them, keeping their feet on the ground now, and as you say, trying to get a 60-minute performance. But when you look at the players they have, they have quality all over the pitch. So
we'll look at the final next week more and more depth, more time to talk about it. But the second semi-final, Danny, Malin, I felt didn't really perform that well until they were 5 or 6 points behind, and then they took the foot off the pedal then, and they could have won the game from there. But Neve Columba responded well with the last 3 points of the game, but could have went either way. Yeah,
that was always going to be a tight game, Charlie. I was only there for the first half. I had to go up to do up the Gweedore game afterwards. But in that first half, Neve Columba set out their stall, and it was very unusual to see it, but they really went with the long ball.
Yeah,
and I counted 6-7 attacks where they went long every time. And the one thing Malin might look back on in that first period is number 4 for Glen went on to be man of the match was Paul O'Hare. Now, Paul O'Hare is a quality player. He played under 20 with Donegal. He was kind of left to do his own thing around the middle of the field as a kind of a spare man. And he put in 2 balls early on that ended up in 2 points, and he also put the high ball in for the goal. So that was 1-2 directly off him.
Yeah.
But having said that, on the other end, Benny McLaughlin was causing all kinds of problems for the Neve Columba.
They couldn't handle him at all.
Couldn't handle him. I think he got 4 from play overall.
Yeah.
So the game was really much. The goals were kind of swinging towards Neve Columba. Obviously, the 6-point lead. But the one thing Malin bring is fight and heart, and they came back storming back in that second half by the help of a goal from Stephen McLaughlin, and then they had 3 or 4 opportunities after that to get that point ahead or 2 points ahead. And when you've momentum built up, they didn't kill Neve Columba off. Had they got a point up, I'm not convinced Neve Columba would have had the wherewithal to come back. But as long as Neve Columba were not behind and were able to settle themselves back down again, a couple of good substitutions. Kevin McNairn came in. They were able to walk the ball up the field with the likes of Aaron Doherty involved, and they got that point ahead. And you know yourself, John, in a game, if you've been under the cosh and you still weather the storm and you're still a point ahead, you can take a lot of confidence from that, and you can see that game out. And that's the way it turned out. They went 2 points up, seen it out, and got their place in the final.
Yeah,
Charlie, at the match, watching it, like in the second half, when Glen Columkill got their second goal to go 6 up, they were definitely, they were in a strong position. But once Malin got the goal and the keeper came up and had a couple of good points off the 45, and Malin clawed their way back, Charlie, and they'll be sick of Malin this week. They have to be, as Danny said, they dominated the next 10 minutes once they got level. They had the possession over and back. Did they kick 4 wides? They kicked a couple of wides, but they were totally on top. And Eugene Duffy was sitting beside me, and I said, this is their purple patch. If they don't do it, Glen will get another wee spell.
Well, they played so well to get from where they were to where they got to, John.
And they kept playing, Charlie, but they just didn't take their scores. Whether they just, took their foot off the pedal a wee bit, or thought we're level now, we can, go over and back a wee bit more. But just they were totally on top. Should have kept the press on. Needed a score to get them ahead, get them 2 ahead. The crowd was totally behind them, and you just knew that Glen Columkill were going to get another period of possession or get another break up the pitch. And when they did, they were clinical, Charlie. And did they win by 3 points?
3 points.
3 points. 2 points.
2 points. Was it 2 points? Maybe Glen or
Malin
had won the end.
2-10 to 1.
Oh, was it 3 in the end?
So they broke up and then took them 3 great points at the end. And you have to give it a lot of credit, because they hung on. Like when Malin came back to level, you thought there was only going to be one winner. Glen Columkill hung on well, and then when they got their chance to break, they broke fast, took their points, and they were fully, fair play to them, Cherry. They hung on, and they'll be happy. And as Danny says, in the first half, this long ball in diagonal, it was great to see, because it definitely was. Obviously, it was a tactic, because they did it, as you say, 6 or 7 times.
No, they did. Yeah.
Do you think was it because of the small goalkeeper?
I think that might have been one of the reasons. Because Zach Collins is a very good keeper, but he's small. And the way the wind at O'Donnell Park as well, if you go outside the boot, it'd come in, and it needs to get a flick to it. But I watched them against Bundoran, and they didn't play the long ball once in that game. So it was definitely a tactic.
And what they did is put number 8, and so they kind of kept 3 men up. They put 3 men in right on top of the 14, and then they just lorried it in. Nice diagonal, that hanging ball rather than a big booth. And it worked a treat. They got a couple of them flew over the bar, Charlie. They hit some lovely points from outside the 45, outside. Oh,
they're a good team.
And Aaron Doherty. And
I know we'll preview it next week, but for Termon, because Neve Columba played the way they did at the weekend, it's a different. See, if you're Keelan McDade trying to set your team up, are Glen or Neve Columba going to come with the long ball? Are they going to run it? They probably can mix it up. So you need to, as a manager or coach, you have to figure out what might they bring. So it's not easy as.
We'll talk about it next week. Yeah. Just a reminder to people, they met on the opening day of the championship this year. I was down on the Burn Road for that game. It finished 4-12 to 14 points.
High
a
scoring.
10-point victory for.
I think Darren McDade got 4 goals.
I think he got 3 or 4.
He
Well,
got
definitely
4,
got, he
yeah.
got 2 in the first 3 minutes that day. But I said it after that game. What impressed me about Glen was they were 7 or 8 points behind very early in that game. They never gave up. They kept playing. They kept playing, and they got 14 scores as against 16 scores.
Yeah.
So they weren't that far away. It's just
Not
that
far away.
Dara was banging in the goal.
And just a general point on intermediate games at the weekend, and not because we were involved in it, but I was very, particularly on a Sunday, Malin, Nicolumba, Termon, take those 3 teams for example, very strong teams, very good teams at that level, and whoever wins that championship, I would expect and hope they would have a real crack at the Ulster Championship as well.
Well, hopefully.
Well, I tipped Termon a couple of years ago for the Ulster club. They were keeping their eye on it. It didn't work out for them. But anyway,
don't tip them this
put
year.
the pressure on them, Charlie.
Stay away from it. In the intermediate B, victory for Burt over Malin and Termon over Buncrana. So it's Termon, Burt, Termon both finals there. So well done to them. Junior, Danny, I'm sure they're happy about Carndonagh with their performance against St Mary's from Convoy. 2-14 to 9 points, pretty impressive.
Yeah, they're very happy, Charlie. They're in the final. I thought they would get there, and I thought Muff would get there as well. So it's the final that I would have predicted probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. Carndonagh have always produced good footballers as well. That's one thing about the club. Flair players, boys that can play, get their heads up and play football. And then they've got Conor O'Donnell in there, but they've more than Conor O'Donnell. I mentioned Ryan Kelly last week. Fergal Doherty hit 1-3. Cian Doherty's a good player. They've Danny Monagle playing their full back line, who played County Minor. So they have a bit about them. Michael O'Donnell's in there as their manager this year, a new voice. So they've galvanised the club. They've got men out, and they're also competing in the hurling championship. So and they have a lot of dual players. So huge respect for them in regard to what they've done.
Yeah.
And they come up against Muff, won the other semi-final, and I think it's going to be a fascinating battle there because you have 2 in the zone teams, and wee bit of contrast in styles. I think Carndonagh will be more of a flair team, where I think Muff, and we met them during the season, have a really powerful, pacey, strong team. Kevin Lynch at full forward. Keelan McColgan will probably detailed on Conor O'Donnell.
That'll be an interesting battle.
And that could be the battle that sways it either way, whoever wins that particular battle. But a fascinating final, and just 2 teams that, Muff have set out their stall, John, as you know. And
I was just going to say that to John.
I think they were one of the clubs that might have objected to the unions and Neil Connell getting into the junior championship. So they've set out their stall to win the junior championship.
Well, they're in the final, John, 4-7 to 7 points against Niamh Ulton, who've been about finals there for the last couple of years as well. So that's impressive by Niamh Padry from Muff.
It is, and it'll be interesting, Terry, we'll have to do a research before that junior final. How many of that Muff team that was in a minor final against St Junans 5 or 6 years ago, Charlie?
I'll say there's quite a few of them. They're a young team, like they're in that 23, 24.
So that was a good minor team, Charlie, to get to an A final. So they probably have a good few of those boys on. So that's obviously going to give them a bit of pedigree, boys that are playing at that level. But these teams, Charlie, set out every year to win the junior championship because they're all maybe of a similar level. Maybe Carndonagh will be thinking, I remember a couple of years ago against the Gaels in O'Donnell Park, they kind of threw it away. Well, not throw it away, but it was a tight game, but the Gaels got the better of them, and then they kind of disappeared last year. They were very poor. Now they're back this year. Dad, as you say, probably favourites. You have them favourites because Danny, in fairness, would have better knowledge
I
of them
work
down
up there too, John.
I know why. So no, but you know the players. So it's going to be fascinating. No, but fair play to Muff. Cherry was down there last night with an under 12 team. I'm on the road all the time with St Junans underage. But, they had a good under 12 team. Cherry, playing at Division 1, so they're doing plenty of good work. So it'll be a fascinating.
That's going to be a big final. That's a big final. The teams,
a bit more next week as well. And the B, intermediate B, the junior B, Oris 1-9, Carndonagh 14 points. Niamh Breed 1-5, Niamh Wara 2-4. So Niamh Wara and Carndonagh in the B final, Danny?
Yeah, that'll be Niamh Wara Convoy.
That's Niamh Wara Convoy.
Against Carndonagh. That's Carndonagh 2 teams in the final.
All right, we'll move on to the senior championship. Last week the predictions were a bit off, boys, I have to say.
Not just us.
Not just you guys, a lot of people. Four games, John. 3 finished with 1 point winners and the other finished with a 2 point winner, and the second point there came deep into injury time for Guidor. Fascinating weekend of football. The performance of the weekend, I'm going to start with this because I think it's the performance of the weekend. St Michael's against Kilcar. No Michael Langan. 9-2 down at half time. The odds stacked against them and back they came to 1. What an achievement and what a performance by them.
Absolutely, Charlie. And I think, we might look back on this weekend in years to come as a seismic weekend for Donegal club football where, the script has been ripped up.
Yeah.
And that it is now more than a big four are a big two. There's teams now coming, Charlie, and it's great to see. It's about, it's about great for the GAA fan out there that wants to go and watch club championship from now on for the next few years. That is going to be a very, very competitive championship with new teams coming. St Michael's, Charlie, really unbelievable. Like, there's no other. I was listening to it on the radio going out to Donegal Park for the Neve Columba game, and like it was 9-2, and I thought, Jesus, that's kind of what we might have predicted. I know Kilcar maybe had a bit of a breeze in the first half, but 9-2 up and dominating, Charlie, and I just thought that's the end of that there. Like, I turned the radio off, went into Donegal Park, in the tunnel. Vincent showed me 1-7 to 12 points. I thought, Jesus, St Michael's are, fair play to them, make the game. And next thing, it was 2-7 to 30. It was a draw, and then we got Highland on, and we were listening to the live commentary. Like, it's just unbelievable, Charlie. Like, I couldn't see it, especially when you're 9-2 down, and then Paddy McBurdy missed the penalty. Mark Anthony apparently made a brilliant
big
save.
moment, Sean. That save was a big moment, and then 2 quick goals then turned the match on its head completely.
Well, if you get 2 quick goals, Charlie, and bring you back in, you have all the momentum. Like, but for them to do that, Charlie, I just couldn't see it, and especially without Michael Lang. Like, in my head, Charlie, and this is probably unfair to St Michael's, when we were playing, it was Christie and Colum and Martin McElhenney at their prime, and they had a good team, and they got to county final. Glen Swally beat them, but in back of my mind, that was, they've dropped back
from
that
golden period.
That was golden period, and maybe they've dropped back. Like, they were in the relegation battle with Milford last year. Am I right, Danny? And that was the last game. Whoever lost that went down, or was it a semi-final?
I think it was a semi-final.
But still, Terry, they were in the relegation battle last year with the same players and with Michael Langham. So it's some turnaround, and they haven't got to a semi-final by beating teams at their own level. Like, they've gone to Maharagal and won the previous game, which was a big statement. But to go and beat Kilcar, I don't care. Say what you want about Kilcar, Terry. They're a quality team with quality players and a lot of experience. And when they were 9-2 up, you thought, there's no way Kilcar are going to blow this against St Michael's. St Michael's won't have enough quality, but you just...
They're the only unbeaten team left in the championship.
Only unbeaten team left in the championship. And on merit, and they've beaten some big teams. They've beaten Gidor and they've beaten Kilcar on the way there. So you got to handle them, Jerry. An amazing result. Like, just totally shocked.
Kilcar will be kicking themselves, Danny.
Yeah, they're going to have to be, Charlie, when you're that far ahead with the players that they have. But it goes to show you, Charlie, no matter what level of sport you're at, the mind is a dangerous place. If the mind starts to relax and think the job is done, you can go into a bit of a complacency, and even when they missed a penalty, probably we're still okay. Next thing, Colin McFadden hangs a goal, and they probably still think they're okay. But the second goal goes in, it's game. I think game's level. Now you're in trouble. Now you're in trouble, and the damage is done. The damage is done at that stage. But I still thought they would have the wherewithal, to nick a result. I know they got back level, and then St Michael's were back up the field again. But look, the story is St Michael's, Charlie, on that game.
100%.
100%. And we said this last week. I asked the question: would Michael Langan's absence galvanise them or deflate them? And it's clear it has galvanised them. Because now, had they gone on and lost that game by 7 or 8 points, it was the opposite. But the fact of the matter is, when the chips were down and the thing was gone, they dug deep and they found a way of competing and getting back in a game of football that was gone from them against the calibre of player. I mean, the half-back line for Kilcar was, I think it was Owen McHugh, Ryan McHugh and Mark McHugh. I mean, that's a serious half-back line. Kieran McGinley was on the field, Steve McBurdy was on the field, Conor Doherty, Pat McBurdy, they're all there, Charlie.
They were all there. They were strong.
It was a strong Kilcar team, and you asked the question about Kilcar, they have to be looking at themselves this week and wondering where that went wrong, because this was their opportunity, I think, this year. And if you look at the way that game panned out, had they won it, they would have met Dunlow in a county semi-final. Would have been strong favourites to make a final, and would have been a dangerous final opponent for whoever we made from the other side. In their 100th year, this is a big, big miss for Kilcar, and it could damage them.
All gone.
It's amazing, Charlie, as Danny says, about a team missing their main man and how they can respond. And there's loads of examples. Like, I know when we were playing, a couple of times Brendan Devaney was injured for matches and championship games, and they said Union's will never win. Like, and it was a big driving force to say that we could win without Brendan being on the field. They could drive you on, because people say, without Devaney, Union's can't win. And I know Terry and Kelly Clogher, as I say, my wife's from Kelly Clogher, but they won the championship in 2003 for the first time. Now, they'd lost a final in 99 and maybe 2001, but their best player went to Australia in 2003 and missed the championship, and they went on to win it. I know it's, but it was, it always stuck with me that their best player was away, but they still found a way to win it. Like, they had a good team, but
but somebody deserves a mention there, Charlie, and that said it was Daniel McLaughlin.
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
Daniel McLaughlin. I'm not sure. I think he is the manager. I'm not sure. I know Cal
No,
Sweeney's
there's
manager. He's
Cal Sweeney and
he's
Raymond,
helping.
Raymond McLaughlin.
Jesus, Jerry, don't be.
No, but look, he was
Taking
last
it
year.
out,
No, Daniel was last year because I remember talking about it.
He was.
He was last year, yeah. But the fact of the matter is, he's come back from a serious injury. He was involved in the 2012 Donegal team. He's always been a fantastic player. But I think his mental resolve to come back, I think his injuries were quite serious, and to come back and to be the leader, to be the Michael Langan.
Yeah.
He was the Michael Langan last weekend for
He
them.
was kicking points.
He was kicking points and he led them and drove them, and yeah, credit to them, Charlie.
Fair play to them.
And now, Charlie, I suppose the question now is, will Michael be back for this weekend?
Well, we'll leave that question for another day, John. At the moment, we'll head to Falcara, Dunlow 2-8, Glenswally 13 points. 2 early goals. I was talking to some of the Glenswally guys in Balbuffet before the game on Saturday evening, and they were saying they were chasing the game, John, and that's what happens if you can see 2 early goals. You're chasing the game. They chased and caught up, but in fairness to Dunlow, they went away from them again.
Exactly, Charlie, and another upset, maybe not as big as, no way as big an upset as the St Michael's result, but still an upset because Glenswally, Charlie, were fancying their chances. They thought they had an easier draw. You know, I think maybe they got caught up a bit in their own hype, thinking that, you know, they were this championship club and this is going to stand us. At the end of the day, Charlie, you have to go out and deliver, and they didn't do that.
Dangerous to think that against Dunlow.
Absolutely, because this Dunlow team is seasoned. Now, they mightn't be seasoned at senior for very long, but they have been around. You know, they lost them a couple intermediate finals, then got back and won it. You know, were competitive last year.
Played a lot of big games, Sean.
Competitive last year in the senior championship, had a good game against Gidor down in Falcara. So they're hardened, and as Danny says, they're around a long time together. Desi Geller's doing a great job with them, and they're just biding their time, Cherry. They're putting in the hard work, and they're playing to a plan, and they've got a bit of confidence about them, and enough good footballers to trouble good teams. And you know, they were good enough to beat Glenswally, and I think, you know, Glenswally, they're kicking themselves no more than Kilcar, but you know, you have to go and do it, Cherry, and they didn't do it. And fair play to Dunlow, you know, you just got to have them, Cherry. It's great to see these new teams coming through. I know Glenswally won't be happy with that, but all the credit to Dunlow.
Yeah, and credit to them, Danny, in the fact that they had that comfortable early lead. Now, it was very early in the game, but when Glenswally got back in terms, very similar situation to the Kilcar game, when St Michael's got back, they went for the juggler. You'd have thought Glenswally then were going to push on and do it, but as I said, Dunlow went 4 points away from them. Glenswally came back with 3, but I think the response from Glenswally the response from Dunlow to Glenswally getting level with them was a big one.
Oh, huge, Charlie, because as the favourites, and they came storming back into the game, and Michael Murphy's on the field, and you're thinking all momentum's with Glenswally, but Aaron Ward, I mentioned Aaron Ward in here last week. I thought he might match up against Michael Murphy, and he did, and I think he did a really good job on him, apparently. And the warning signs were there for Glenswally when Michael was taken out from full forward to midfield early in the first half, because everything about Glenswally in recent times has been about Michael playing at full forward and being a threat. That threat was taken away because they were in trouble out around the middle. The one thing that Dunlow team have, Charlie, and John's right, they've been around together. They won intermediate title together. I think it's practically the same 15 or 18 or 19 that they're using, so they'll probably come up through their underage ranks together. They're a physically strong team. They're a fit team. And I think I said last week that they might be able to compete with Glenswally physically. That a lot of young lads in Glenswally team are still maturing, still getting to a level of conditioning. Young Owen Scott didn't play, and he would have been a loss for them. But the story again, no more than the St Michael's game, the story is Dunlow.
Yeah.
You know,
they
were the underdogs going into it, and they grabbed an opportunity to get to a county semi-final. And remember, I talked before about Clough-Neely having this opportunity last year against Ardrat, didn't grab it. Dunlow grabbed it, Charlie. They didn't ask questions. 2 early goals, what a start, and drove on from there.
They didn't back off. Well done to them into the semi-final. Gidor 9 points, 4 Masters, 7 points, John. Anything but a classic, that one, a dogfight, 4 each at half time. It was just a matter of who was going to get over the jump. But credit to 4 Masters, they put it up to Gidor and made them work hard for it.
Exactly, and it's one of these, you know, I know they didn't win, Charlie, but it's a performance that you have to take a lot of heart of if you're a 4 Masters player and supporter. Mightn't have been a classic, but they were still fit to go toe-to-toe with Gidor, Charlie, in a knockout championship game. And coming down the stretch, it was 7-all, it was 8-7, and I think Formaster had a good few chances to go 8-all and didn't take them, and then Gidor caught them at the end. So, for all intents and purposes, Jerry, nothing in the game. As you say, 4-all at half time, a real dogfight. I was listening to it on the radio, and you know, 4 Masters gave as good as they got. Now, how good were Gidor in the day, Jerry? It's like we said last week, there's 2 Gidors. It's a Gidor that, blew St John's away in O'Donnell Park and blew McCool's away in O'Donnell Park, or the Gweedore that got beat, only scored 5 points against St Michael's at home, and maybe you could say maybe only scored 4 points against Four Masters in the first half and struggled to get through the second half. But they did enough to win, Cherry. So Gweedore will be happy enough without playing well. But Four Masters, Cherry, have to take a lot of positives from this year. Looking at my own experience, Cherry, when we came through as a young team back in 95, 96, we got to 2 county semi-finals, and then we made the breakthrough in 97. So this is kind of their...
It takes a while.
You say this is their second year, Danny, on the road?
This is their first quarter final,
but they were
probably second time on the road.
Second time on the road. So, it takes a wee while, Cherry, but they have a lot of quality there.
They've done so well underage over the last number of years, John. You have to presume
they will. So next year's going to be a big year for them. Can they hold boys together? Are boys going to go travelling? What's their study arrangements? It's just hard, Cherry. They're at that age now. All them minors coming through at 2021 now. Can they hold on them? Can they, try to win a senior championship, a crusade for them group of boys? That this is the only thing that matters in their lives. And can they get that done in the next 3 or 4 years? It's a big challenge, Cherry, but they've got the raw material there. Yeah. So they're in a good enough place. This is a learning experience for them, but they'll have to be happy, Cherry, with the progress they've made this year. They have progressed. It's about making the next step next year.
Yeah.
Gweedore will be happy, Cherry. They're in a semi-final against St John's. They know enough about each other at this stage. I think France.
Will they be happy after the McCool performance, which was very impressive? I think we were all impressed with them that day. Will they be happy with Sunday? They'll be happy with winning, but will they be happy with the rest of it? All that went with it?
They'll be happy with winning, and they'll be relieved, because going into the game, they would have been concerned about the results from the other 3 quarterfinals.
Yeah.
Particularly the 2 that we talked about already, where the underdogs came through. So they would have been a wee bit nervous about that. They would have been nervous about the fact that they lost to Four Masters in the first group game.
That's right.
Where they conceded, I think, 3 goals on the day.
Yeah.
So this was not a good game of football, Charlie. There's no point saying otherwise. The 2 teams were very defensive. They mirrored each other. Gweedore were probably conscious of not conceding early scores against Four Masters, where they would just grow in confidence, so they kind of shut things down. Four Masters tried to shut things down the other end, so it was over and back. It was quite a boring game for the first half. Darragh Beale played out the field in this game as opposed to inside against McCool, so they didn't really go long into Ethan Harkin at times. They tried to run everything. So Dole McBride was the big player for Gweedore, I thought, on the day. He kind of carried them a wee bit. He got their first score of the game. He got another score in the second half. But as the game wore on, the sense I got watching it was that Gweedore would find a way of winning, because of the experience that they have, and because they have players who have been around the block, winning Ulster Championship. Like if Niall Friel got the big free near the end to seal it. Gary McFadden was all over sending Carr for the full 60 minutes. Darragh Beale was a big influence in the last 5 or 10 minutes. Eamon Collum kicked them a point ahead.
Yeah. And
at the same time, when Gweedore were doing that, Four Masters were getting up the field, but weren't getting into scoring positions. The Gweedore defensive shape was able to hold them out. So Gweedore will be happy to be in the semi-final. They will relish a crack at St Eunan's. I think they've said that. I think they consider themselves a bit of a bogey team for St Eunan's. I don't know whether John will agree with that or not, but over the years, they've already got a win under the belts against them, and they'll win as underdogs. So a Gweedore team being written off as a dangerous team, as everybody knows.
Yeah.
But going back to the Four Masters, I think it'll be very interesting, Charlie, to see how this develops for them. I got a sense watching the last day, and we played against them in the league. They are a young team. They don't have anybody in that 29, 30, not many, 29, 30, 31, 32, which you still need, I think. You still need that mix to cut it at the top level.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see, can they hold on to all of those lads, number one. And those lads that they have still need to go to another level to compete with your St Eunan's and your Neil Connells to win county championships. Yeah. And that's ultimately what Four Masters will want from this group, will be
for sure
to compete at the highest level.
Sure.
So if they're ready to push on, willing to push on, and then achieve and reach their potential, then they're going to be a dangerous team.
All right, John, we're going to move on to the last of the quarterfinals now. I'm sure you're a relieved man. McCool Park, as all St Eunan's supporters were. 10 points to 9, 7-3 at half time, after Eunan's were certainly the better team in the first half, but for a long time in that second half it looked as if they'd lost the will to win, because Neil Connell came out with a different attitude in the second half, and when they went ahead, the momentum, as Danny mentioned there about other things, was with them. So Eunan's were good enough then to get the final 2 points of the game, but it was nerve-wracking stuff.
Oh, Charlie, it was nerve-wracking. Of course it was. It was, just pulling your hair out in that second half from a St Eunan's point of view. But as we discussed earlier, Terry, it was a cracking game. You know, I know sometimes these games can be dull and it can be low scoring, and 10-9 is not a massive score, but the amount of drama in that second half was just brilliant. Like, you know, if you were neutral there watching it on the stream or at the game, like it was just phenomenal. But from a St. John's point of view, yeah, Terry, the start of the second half when, you know, we were in control at 7-3, and then with that great chance with Darren McGrew, possibly probably a goal chance maybe in some respects, but not even to get a point of it. And then, you know, Niamh Conaill just came with that massive pressure, and they started turning the ball all over the pitch. St. John's started to make mistakes, and that happens when the heat comes on, Charlie, and just bit by bit Niamh Conaill got their way back into it the way they do, like, and some of their score taking was brilliant, and just their play. I thought Anthony Thompson was immense, Charlie, probably the best player on the pitch. You know, for me, he was just brilliant. The way he got the point in the first half, got a free in the first half, gave a brilliant ball to Keelan McGill for a mark, and just kind of brought them back into the game. But from a Euro's point of view, Charlie, you know, I said last week that they just had to find a way to win. It didn't matter what it was, but they could not. They could not lose again. Like, and if they had lost that game the way that it was at half time, and that, I tell you, would have been a real sucker punch. Like,
been a long way back from there,
we've been sucker punched before, but that would have been
maybe
as bad as the last lock of defeats. That probably would have been the worst. So delighted, Charlie, that didn't happen, and big credit to the boys. Like Darren McGrew to kick that with the left foot, you know, after missing the easy one to equalise, and then Kieran Moore to equalise was brilliant. And then just to find a way at the end with young old McGeehan, like you know, it was a nice bit of play, and he got a bit of space, and by God, Terry, did he finish it, you know, clinically with two Niamh Conaill men putting the pressure on. I suppose then the drama was the amount of extra time that Mark Brown found then afterwards to add on 2.5 minutes to the 4 minutes that, you know, was signalled, because after the first Glenty's wide, I think Sean Patton put the ball down on 64 minutes 10 seconds, and you thought, he puts this out now, the whistle goes, and he played on, and, you know.
Well, extra time's at the discretion of
well,
the
it is,
referee.
at least, but like I don't know where he got it from, Terry, but you thought, like, that chance Brick had, it wasn't the hardest chance in the world. You would have kind of backed him to put it over at the end, and thankfully from St. John's point it went wide, Terry. But a cracking game, you know. Some of these games have been very dull, but brilliant. And I suppose Danny,
Danny, I was just going to say, Danny, from a managerial point of view, both managers will be pulling their hair out after that game, because Glenty's didn't turn up for the first half, really. 1 point from play, which is terrible for them. St. Eunan's in the second half did everything wrong that they did right in the first half to allow Niamh Conaill, who worked very hard in that second half. So both benches must have been pulling their hair out there.
Yeah, probably were. As I would imagine Martin Regan was, because the reaction from his group in the second half would tell that there was a few words said at half time, because they came out a completely transformed team. Now, having said that, had Darryl McGrew that goal chance gone in, it was probably game over. But once that didn't go in, and you don't put Glenty's away, they will keep coming at you and keep coming at you. But everybody asked the question, what were St. Eunan's going to bring differently this time to get over the line? And for me, there were a couple of things they did differently. For definite in that first half, there was emphasis on moving the ball at pace and getting the ball inside and playing with a wee bit more flair. Now, ironically, I think Niamh Conaill helped them along, because they put Brendan McDyer kind of shadowing Connor Senior, because Eunan's would normally go through Connor Senior a lot as a pivot player. So Niamh Conaill didn't want him maybe getting on the ball and influencing things. So once he wasn't able to come on the ball, it maybe forced Eunan's to go more direct more often. And then Connor did come on one ball and kicked a very good point as well. Yeah. And then their man marking, I looked at the team selection, they picked 7 defenders, and I was wondering, like, Anthony Gallagher was in the team, Conor Morrison was in the team, Aaron Deeney didn't start. Keelan Ward was a big shout. Kieran Tobin was in the team. Conor Donald Senior. I thought, where's the 7th defender? Why is there 7 defenders in the team? And it was because Conor Morrison went toe to toe with Kieran Thompson. Which you said last week, John, somebody's going to have to take Kieran Thompson on. We didn't think it'd be Conor Morrison. We thought it'd be one of the midfielders. And the other man marking job was Aaron Deeney pushed up onto Oran Doherty. So they identified those 2 players as the main players to stop. And that definitely curtailed Niamh Conaill in that first half and allowed Eunan's to then play their football in that first half. But then in the second half, it all changes, because it's all on the line for Niamh Conaill, you know, and they threw their bodies on the line. There was a bit of dew in the grass. It helped them play that game, you know, get stuck in. And then what really surprised me towards the end was Niamh Conaill had worked themselves into a 1 point lead. St. Eunan's under McGrew got back level. Niamh Conaill back up again and got a free to go point up.
That's right.
And I was thinking to myself, I was expecting, because they went after Sean Patton for most of the game, and particularly in the second half when they were losing. But I thought when they were going to point up with like 6 minutes to go, this is the time they're going to drop off Sean Patton, camp inside their 45, let St Eunan's come and break us down.
Yeah.
But they stayed high. Sean Patton kicks it out onto the stand. Shane O'Donnell gets on it, plays it up to Kieran Moore. It's over the bar within 15 seconds.
That's right.
Game level again. Right?
Yeah.
And then towards the end, the winning score, I was trying to figure out where the space came from. Because if you remember, was it Sean McVeigh last year had a shot from the same area, went wide.
That's right.
Keelan Ward had a shot
Just
on Saturday
before that,
night,
that's
went
right.
wide. On this one, Shane or Niall had come out the field because they had Lee McMonigal on the field and they had Owen McGeehan on the field.
inside,
So they
right.
gave the men inside. So they were out kind of setting up the play. Shane got a matchup he looked for, which was John O'Malley. And he ran straight
I
at
think it was
John
the brick.
O'Malley.
I think it was the brick.
Was it
It was
either
the
or?
brick.
I think
Yeah, brick,
he
brick.
ran straight at him. Andy Thompson was kind of looking after the right hand side
Yeah.
of defence, but Eunice had dragged all of their players right of centre, which meant there was nobody out left unless you filled that space.
Yeah.
Owen McGeehan filled the space. Andy Thompson was forced to engage Shane O'Donnell. Balls popped over his head. Owen McGeehan's in space. Lee Connell rushed out to block him. He gets a shot away. Eunice won by a point.
Yeah.
And in previous years, Charlie, we said when Eunice have lost those games, all the credit rightly went to Lee Connell, and all the criticism went to St Eunan's. What did they do wrong? How come they didn't win that game? You have to flip it the other way now. What did Lee Connell do wrong?
Yeah.
What questions must they ask themselves?
When they went ahead twice.
But they'll look at the first half. They look at
Yeah.
the first half performance and wonder, why did they wait 30 minutes to play with the intensity they needed to play with
Good
against St
question.
Eunan's?
Good question. Just a final point on it, John.
What Danny says there at the end, Charlie, is true, because no one has studied it more than me as a supporter. Like, when you lose, you're the worst in the world, and when you win, you're great. And it's a
Yeah.
point between. And I heard a few other pundits in the last recent days coming out now with this narrative that there's nothing between the teams, and there's always been nothing between the teams, and a kick of a ball here. But that's BS to me, Charlie, because the narrative the last few years that were Glenties were this brilliant team, and so they were,
Yeah.
and St Eunan's were jokers.
Well, St Eunan's
I think-
one big performance was the
Yeah.
final that they won,
Yeah,
John.
they've won-
They did
exactly,
everything
yeah.
right that day.
Yeah, they did everything right.
But nothing since.
Nothing since. And but the 2-3 years before that, nothing. Charlie, Nick
Yeah.
Collin had her thing. So that was the narrative. Like St Eunan's, Glenties were this great team, and St Eunan's, all right,
Weren't
could
good
run
enough.
them, could run them close, but weren't good
Yeah.
enough. So it's nice to be on the other side of the result for once, Charlie. And
All right, boys, we're going to look at the semi-finals. Dunlow against St Michael's, not one, Danny, that people would have been predicting, but I'm looking forward to that game because I've seen both of them in action this year, and I saw the game they played against one another. Now, the weather dictated that game, but the commitment from both teams, that's going to be a cracker of a semi-final.
Yeah, brilliant. Can't wait for it myself, Charlie, to be honest with you. And I think a few people have said this during the week. It's a pity there wasn't a 2-week lull for them
Yeah,
two
exactly,
clubs in particular
exactly.
to enjoy the build-up. And
Yeah.
even from a player point of view, Charlie, week after week's hard. Tough championship
sure,
matches,
for sure.
like for Dunlow in particular, and even St Michael's against Kilcar and against Dunlow against Consuelo. You have to go to a very high level to compete with those teams. And now you have to go to that level again a week later against a team that has also won the week before. Look, Dunlow will look at this as an opportunity, an unbelievable opportunity. St Michael's have been in a final before, albeit, 10, 11 years ago at this stage. For Dunlow and the tradition that they have, to be intermediate champions 2 years ago, to be 60 minutes away now from a senior final, I mean, they have to be licking their lips at this. And they'll go into it, in most people's eyes, probably slight underdogs, I think. But they're not going to fear St Michael's, Charlie. And as I've said this before, it's just their age profile. They've got good players. They've got them Curran brothers are serious operators. Danny Rogers is a good goalkeeper. We've named all these lads before.
Yeah.
Darragh Gallagher had a huge game for them in the quarter-final against Glenswilly. And then on the other side of the coin, St Michael's, the only unbeaten team in the championship. The Michael Langan factor, will he want to be here? I can't see him being home for this.
No.
If they make a final, possibly because they're 2 weeks away, but
Yeah.
I think they'll be quite happy to go toe-to-toe with Dunlow without him. He's not there, so they're not even thinking about it. But they are taking huge confidence into the game, coming back from where they were against Kilcar, going to Margathlin and beating Gweedore. And it's because of those two results, I would edge it to St Michael's. And I know I'm conscious that Dunlow are my neighbouring club, but I'm just being honest on it. I think Dunlow will be quite happy to go in as underdogs. But I think St Michael's results against Gweedore and against Kilcar, and the fact that they're unbeaten and they've played Division 1 football all year and they beat Dunlow by a point already, you have to edge slightly towards St Michael's. But I'm talking slightly, Charlie.
Where do you go with it, John?
yeah, I think Charlie's really too close to call.
Yeah.
You know, I know what Danny, fair play to Danny, he's nailed his colours to the mast, but I think, Terry, there's nothing in it, because even that game in the Bridge, there was nothing in it until the last kick of the ball. No, there was a strong breeze and Michael Langan put them one up, but you can't take away from either team, Terry, the way they've got here. You know what I mean? All right, St Michael's are unbeaten and they have taken 2 big scalps with Gweedore and Kilcar, but they're no, Terry, you know, their game is hell. You know, and as Danny says, they're bound to be chomping at the bit to get a chance at the county final. St Michael's have been there. Not all them, St Michael's players, a lot of them haven't.
But as a club they've been there.
As a club they've been there. So, too close to call, Charlie, but great occasion. Like, there should be a massive crowd from both clubs there.
Will be. And neutrals.
And neutrals, like, you know, on Sunday afternoon for a big game, and, you know, hoping and praying that we get a good game of football and that they go at it. And you know, when we think back, Terry, when we were on this podcast, maybe the first year, was it Dunlow and Clogherneely in the intermediate final out in O'Donnell Park? Did it go to a replay?
It did, yeah.
You know, so like Dunlow have come a long way, Charlie, because Clogherneely bet them on that replay and bet them well.
That's
you know,
right.
now Clogherneely where they are. So, you know, Dunlow have stuck at it, Charlie, and you just have to be full of admiration for the way they've stuck at it, and that team, and Desi Gallagher stuck with it, and, you know, the work they've put in, and they're there merit, and they have a massive chance.
And just one other point, Charlie, just a broader point. We had a discussion last year, maybe even this year, about the size and the amount of teams in the senior championship, and some people want to reduce it to an 8. Had we done that this year, Dunlow and St Michael's would probably not be in the position they're in, possibly not 4 Masters. So how are we going to improve the standards in our club teams if they don't see an opportunity to get to a county final? Because every team now at that level is thinking, this winter we could be Dunlow or St Michael's next year. If we get a run and avoid, say, the big 1 or big 2, we could be in a county final.
And I've always said, Charlie, people have asked me about, you know, seeding, you know, the seeding, the top 4 or the big 4 from last year's semi-finals get seeded in a quarter final or whatever, and I've always disagreed with it, because I think there's a bit of romance about a team unexpectedly can get a run to a county final if it's an open draw. The big teams are on one side, the other teams maybe get a handy draw, because if you're going to win the championship, Charlie, you have to beat some of the big teams. You're not going to get it all the way. Like, if St John's are going to won the championship, I've always said they're going to have to beat Niamh Conn, be in the quarter final, semi final, doesn't matter. And the same for Dunlow, that if they're going to win it, they're going to have to beat someone big, doesn't matter where it is, but it gives them a chance to get to a semi final, a final. Massive excitement in the community that hasn't been in the county final. When was 1964 Dunlow, I think someone said they won it in 50, 57, 58. So, you know, and St Michael's have never won it, so like massive opportunity. So I always favour the open draw, Charlie, to give a team a chance to get to a final. That, you know, people, because if it's seeded, Charlie, it'll be the big teams. You might beat one, but you won't beat 2 or 3.
You won't beat them all. Well, we had an open draw for these semi-finals, and Gweedore and St Eunice came out of the hat, Danny, together. So
Frankie again, was it?
I'm not sure. I wasn't there. I wasn't there myself.
I was there.
Well, blame him anyway.
Frankie was there. Yeah,
Frankie was there.
Well, if it was, having good luck.
He didn't draw the balls out.
Gweedore against St Eunice. We're looking for a very exciting game between Dunlow and St Michael's for all the reasons you guys have given. Yeah. What are we going to get? Are we going to get a repeat of what we saw in the Donald Park between Gweedore and St Eunice? Because I'll tell you what, Danny, that wasn't a classic of any kind.
Well, if you're Ronan McNeill, Charlie, you're not going to change. Why would you? I mean, it worked for you. So they will did it against 4 Masters at the weekend. Why would they change? Why would they change? The beat St Eunice doing exactly that in the park. Now, I think they'll be copped on enough. I think Ronan said it immediately after the St Eunice game that what they did going forward wouldn't win a championship. So they'll probably have worked hard on the transition, that when they are camped in and they do turn St Eunice over, that they're going to have to get legs up the field and they're going to have to be clinical up the field.
Well, they have plenty of pace about them.
They have plenty of pace about them, yeah, and they have good man markers in their full back line, like Gary McFadden, Niall Freelet, 6, Danny Kern. Look, they will make it awkward for St Eunice. They're not going to lie down and let the Eunice run through them and play around them. And they'll look for physical contact, and they'll look to turn the ball over, and they'll look to get Darragh O'Boyle in particular in transition as much as they can. Dol McBride's a strong runner from midfield as well. Michael Rorty's in there, and then they've Ethan Harkin at the top end, who'll need to have a massive game for them. He'll probably have to hit 5 or 6 points if they're going to beat St Eunice in that type of game. The alternative game plan for them, Charlie, is to go toe to toe, and I don't think they'll fancy that. I don't think they'll fancy taking on Shane O'Donnell, Niall O'Donnell, Kieran Moore, Darrell McGrew. Who else is coming that forward line for them? Connor Duck and boys like that, man on man. Yeah. I just don't see them doing it, and I think they may have to do it at some stage in the game, but they'll certainly, in my opinion, set their stall out to be very difficult to break down, to stay in the game as long as they can, and maybe catch St Eunan's on one of these days where they don't play well against the pack defence, because the evidence is there from previous games that they don't always play well. So why would Gweedore change?
Yeah. And John, there's a Eunan's mindset. They've got over the one that a lot of people say is the one that they have to get over, the Leaf Connell one. But that's history now. That's gone now. They're taking on Gweedore. What sort of mentality are they going to have to bring in with them here?
Well, I think, Charlie, they have to just look at their own performance. You know, they have to say if they're good enough, if they perform, so they have to perform. So they have to get up to a level of 7, 8, 9 out of 10. You know, they can't be relying on one or two players to do it. They all have to go there again, Charlie, and get up to an 8 out of 10 and bring that speed, bring that power, bring that quick passing that they did in the first half. They've got the strong runners. They have enough quality up front to score. So they can't, Charlie, go in lackadaisical, you know, slow start over and back, as Danny said, against the blanket defence, playing in Gweedore's hands. Gweedore will set up with a blind defence, but you don't have to be slick, Charlie. They have to be quick through the hands like they were in the first half against Niamh Connell and get them scores from outside the D and, you know, pin Gweedore back and make Gweedore come out and play then. And if Gweedore come out and play and opens up, you know, you would think that will suit St Eunan's. Danny's right. Gweedore never fears St Eunan's, Charlie. You know, both clubs are top of the roll of honour. There's a big rivalry there. There's a big tradition. Gweedore like to think they can beat St Eunan's, and history would say in the last few big games, you know, the Benison County final in 2003 or that 02 final, a few other games, yes. So, you know, the pressure is going to be on St Eunan's. Like, they cannot, Charlie, knock Niamh Connell out and then get caught by Gweedore in the semi-final. You know, like,
that's the challenge for them, John.
Well, that's the challenge, you know, and the challenge for the team at the start of the year, Terry, as I said from the word go, was they won a championship. They were going to have to beat Niamh Connell somewhere along the line. They were probably going to have to beat Gweedore or Kilcar or another big team as well. So that challenge is still there. They just have to get their heads right, Terry. Not think about last week that the championship's won, because by God, it's not won.
That's a danger, isn't it?
Just one thing that will help St Eunan's during the week in terms of this headspace is, if you look at the team selection last week, Keelan Ward didn't start, Darrell McGrew didn't start, Owen McGeehan didn't start, Liam McMonigal didn't start.
Yeah.
The men they took off, Kieran Tobin, team captain, withdrawn, Kevin Keeley withdrawn. So there's going to be a bite of training this week, because they'll all want to play in this semi-final. So that'll take any idea of complacency here, because the competition for places will look after that.
Yeah.
But the other thing that might be interesting, Charlie, is that 20-minute spell where St Eunan's struggled against Niamh Connell. I think Barry Meehan will be delighted in one sense that he can go back to that this week and say, that cannot happen again this weekend. Yeah. Whenever the heat comes on, we need to be better than that. But at the same time, Rowan McNeilis might look at that 20-minute spell and say, when we go after them, they can be got at.
Yeah.
But we need to do the same thing Niamh Connell did. Get into their faces, press up man on man, get a hand in, get a spillage. If it's a wet day, for example, that will not hinder Gweedore in terms of their game plan. It's easier to defend on a wet day. It's easier to get body contact and get spillages on a wet day. And then it turns into maybe a game of attrition rather than an open flowing game, which would probably suit St Eunan's more.
All right, call it, John. One word.
Well, St Eunan's.
Danny.
I think St Eunan's, yeah.
Dunloe, St Michael's. One word.
I'll go for Dunloe, Charlie.
Okay, Danny.
I said earlier, St Michael's by the slightest margin.
All right then, interesting. The B Championship semi-finals, Gweedore against Four Masters and Eunan's against Niamh Connell, are the curtain raisers to those senior games. Just very briefly, lads, I'm going to ask you, because we've kind of run out of time here. Danny, relegation, Cloughaneely against St Knowles. Who's going to win that? That's on Glenswilly on Saturday.
I'd be worried for Cloughaneely now, Charlie, to be honest. I thought that defeat by Irua was convincing. Now, unless they have bodies back, I know, speaking to Dennis Doohan before the game, he was concerned about injuries and he wasn't sure whether to throw all his eggs into that basket or wait for a potential final. So, look, they'll battle, Charlie, and they've proven that, and they hung on to Division 2 status doing the same thing. But St Knowles, Peadar Morgan just might be the key player on this game. I think when it comes to relegation games, the best player in the field should step up and deliver for his team. And they've got Gavin Mulroney. They won't have Ben McCall. No. But they'll also need Stephen and Barry Griffin on the field. They're two massive players.
They've been struggling with injury as well.
They've been struggling a wee bit with injury. But overall, just in the way things, I thought Cloughaneely would beat Irua. I said that here. Yeah. But they got well beaten, and that's a concern. So I would be edging towards St Knowles. Yeah.
You have history with Cloughaneely, John. Jokers, I think you called them at one stage.
But it worked, Charlie, because they came out and blew Dunlow away in that replay. And
That's right.
And
Can they do that against
Could
the
Jason
Dolls?
McGee make an appearance? I don't know. Is
Well,
he?
I don't know.
If he
I
does,
don't
that sways it again.
Yeah.
But if he isn't,
No, you would, as Danny
Fancy
said, you
St.
think
Knolls.
you would fancy St. Knolls, but listen, it's funny the way it swung for Cloughanlady and Dunlow, and it's been in 2 or 3 years that Dunlow
absolutely.
are now, going for a county final.
All right
possibly.
then, so both of you going for St. Knolls.
Okay, yeah.
All right, Danny, the intermediate relegation one is Burt against Letterkenny Gales. Gales, very poor season up to the last couple of matches, kind of improved then. Burt dogged to beat. I think I made the point that they finished well down the table, but their score difference was only -10, so a hard team to beat.
hard team to beat, Charlie, and both teams were in this relegation situation last year. I think the Gales won their semi-final, and Burt then we beat Burt actually in our semi-final, and Burt then beat Niebridge in the relegation match. I'll edge towards Burt because of their doggedness, that their game plan won't change. It'll be the same game plan, and normally in those relegation games, it's the dogged team, the team that digs in, the team that doesn't concede, the team that's willing to go to the well generally comes through. Letterkenny Gales, when you lose your manager the way you do mid-championship, things can't be right. Ronan Frayne back is a massive help. Burt will find a man, I'm sure, to try and mark him. If he is the game of his life, it might be enough to get them over the line. But as I said, if you have turmoil in your camp, it's very hard to correct that. And the Gales will probably, if they survive, they need to do something not to get back in the same situation again next year.
Yeah.
Or they may be thinking, you know what, back to junior and try and win a junior again, can maybe rise the club again. It's a big game for the Gales. Well,
it's a big backward step.
It is,
but I know if
you know what I'm saying,
that's the
yeah.
mentality, well then, they're finished.
But things can't be right, John. If you lose your manager,
But there's plenty of clubs, Daddy, where they'll always blame the manager. If things aren't
I know
going well,
that,
the manager will be the first man to get
You
the
think
blame.
Burt will beat them?
No, I don't think they will, Jerry, because I don't think Burt score enough. They're too defensive. They're not scoring enough. So where are they going to get the scores from? And they've got Frayne on the other side for the Gales.
That's fair shout. Yeah.
Okay, all
So
right.
I'm going for the
Good
Gales.
to see you disagreeing on that. C Championship semi-finals are on in Glenfin on Saturday, 2:30. McCool's against Neve Connell and St Eunice against Terman. Neve Connell and St Eunice names keep coming up no matter what level of championship we're playing at there.
I hope I get the call, Charlie. That's the third.
So the third team. I hope,
I
hope you don't. You might be here next
think
Tuesday.
I'm available for selection.
I think they go with youth
Absolutely,
this year.
hopefully.
O'Donnell will be playing.
And just
Rory
finally,
Campbell.
the ladies' finals are on, and unfortunately, the senior game is clashing with the game on Sunday in Ballybofey. But just to run through them, the intermediate, these 3 games on O'Donnell Park, John, on Sunday.
Yeah.
So at 11:45 in the intermediate, it's Ardra against Dunlow. The junior is at 1:45. Downey's against Muff. The senior, Terman there again against Moville, is at 3:45. And then the senior shield is on in Donegal Town, Tyrconnell Park, Glenfin against St Knolls on Sunday morning at 10:30. While in Lifford, the junior A shield is on at 10:30. In Lifford, I said, Kilcar against Doris. Teams from all over the county there, boys, from north to south, east to west. So that's good to see. Good to see. Right, we've run out of time, lads. Thanks to Donaf Construction in Boston, Massachusetts, and to Paul Freed for his support. Thanks to Danny and John for coming in. Another big weekend of football ahead this weekend, so we'll be back next week to look back on what happened and look forward to big intermediate and junior A finals next weekend.
The Donegal Sport Hub Donegal Daily Championship Podcast.